Hello and welcome to something a little bit different. I'm doing a randomly generated character design today. So I found a random generator online, put in a bunch of traits, and then clicked the randomly generate button. And so far our character is male and blonde with long hair, which is already out of my comfort zone. I don't think I've ever drawn a character who's male with long hair. He's got a half up, half down hairdo. Facial hair, just more things piling on that are out of my comfort zone. He's a guy next door type, which I wanted to use to do his face and his posing. He's got tattoos and piercings, but he's not an edgy guy. He's skinny, which proved to be somewhat of a challenge while I was drawing. That was one of the more difficult things to kind of portray. He's got brown eyes. And now I'm doing his race, and he's Asian. And finally, what clothing type does he have? And it's masculine clothes. I do go back and do 2 more off-screen randomly generated kind of things, one of which is the color palette that I'll be using for him, which is Cool Colors, and the other is a name, which I will reveal at the end of the video. So right now I'm just kind of doing a basic sketch using the pencil brush on Photoshop. I wanted it to look like he was laying down. My initial idea was kind of like a laying in the grass kind of character, but drawing backgrounds is really exhausting for me and I was kind of tired this day, so I end up not really drawing very much of a background, but the pose I still think contributes to that sort of carefree guy next door kind of guy. In my mind, a guy next door is like, reliable, he's kind, he's smart, but not like nerdy, and he's just sort of generally outgoing and relaxed. So I'm just trying to get these basic proportions right. I was looking at a reference image, but the reference I was looking at, the guy is a lot more muscular. So this entire time I'm thinking like, how do I make this guy look skinny? And I'm just flipping the canvas around here because I drew a character recently and in almost the same pose, lying down on a bed. And when I flipped it right side up, it looked terrible. Honestly awful. The arms were like really noodly and weird and the chest was weird, so I figured flipping it around while it's still in the early ages of its sketch is probably not a bad idea. This character has a masculine clothing type, so I'm making him, fashionable but not like feminine. That's another thing I think kind of ties into his personality. He's not like particularly edgy, but he doesn't seem like a guy that would, just kind of be slobbish, I guess. So I gave him some Converse, some cuffed jeans, because I thought that might add a little bit of interest to his outfit, a t-shirt, and that's basically it, just sort of generic-y guy clothes, but I wanted him to have some little bit of fashionableness in him, so I cuffed his jeans, I guess. It's cuffing season, so might as well. Again, just flip it around the canvas. It's a lot easier to draw a face right side up than it is to draw it upside down. And I'm trying to really make him look Asian in terms of his face. I had a reference image up to be like, what was the nose shape? What's the eye shape? How is the eyebrows shaped? I think I probably could have eased up on the squareness of his face a little bit and rounded it out, but I kind of like that he looks older. Initially I was kind of thinking teenager, but this guy looks like a college senior, so I'm actually okay with it. He looks a bit older. I just added in piercings because it's sort of far away. I figured the most obvious one would be a lip piercing, especially considering that he has long hair that kind of obscures his ears, so he ended up with a lip piercing, one in his ear, and then an eyebrow bar. The jeans were kind of confusing. I was looking at a reference image, and jeans have like those weird pockets inside pockets that I was trying to do as a little detail. I don't know if that came across or not, but it's what I was trying to do. The shoes in this drawing gave me so much grief. I can't even begin to describe it. It was insane, but I'm actually kind of happy with how the t-shirt fell and how I just tapped my mic. I don't know if you could hear that, but I'm sorry. With how the t-shirt fell and how the wrinkles in the t-shirt look, I think it looks fairly naturalistic. Oh yeah, there I am trying with the shoes. I draw these shoes at least 600 million times, and they still look terrible by the end of it. I don't know if it's just because they're so small and like far away. I probably should have zoomed in on them, but I just couldn't seem to get the shape right. And his feet looked like little tiny baby feet, but that's just foreshortening. That's just how it looks. Also, this hand gave me a lot of trouble, especially the thumb. Like, I felt like I was kind of happy with how the fingers were positioned, but the thumb was confusing and hard. I try with that hand at least 100 times as well. It's just a lot. So I decided instead to just like give it a rest and move on to the face a little bit. I'm pretty happy with how the face turned out. Again, I think he ended up looking a little older than I meant for him to, but I don't hate it. You know, I'm actually pretty okay with his age in general, and I think like the facial hair definitely made him look older. He kind of looks like Tarzan. Like, when I keep removing the back sketch to look at him, he looks like Tarzan from, you know, the Disney movies. And it's just that super square jaw that really got me. I do all this stuff with the hair and then I go back and erase it because the line art was so thin, it looked ridiculous to me. Like, all the rest of the line art was fairly thick, and then suddenly the line art for his hair is just that thin. So I go back and I make the line art a bit thicker for the hair. And then I do like the detailed parts of the hair with the thinner line art. And I don't really know where to end the hair because I haven't drawn in the finger yet, of course. And the bun I'm actually like kind of proud of. I've never really drawn a bun before, but I think I got the twisting it does around itself kind of right, and how it sort of like knots on the top a little bit. I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like that's how I would do my hair in a bun. I think he ended up very handsome, so I wrote, wow, very handsome. I thought he ended up pretty good looking. And I finally get the hand to a point that I'm happy with. I flip it, just to see how it's looking. And this is the way I positioned him earlier, you know, facing this direction. I flipped it because I was looking at a reference image of a shoe, and it was facing the other way. Didn't help at all. That other hand gave me some trouble as well. Hands, of course, always. Why can't hands ever be easy? And while he's a slim guy, I felt like his wrists were looking too skinny. So I do change like the width of his wrist because he's starting to look a little bit skeleton-ish. But in an effort to make him look skinnier, I gave him hip bones. So it looks like he's, you know, kind of thin, but he doesn't have abs. I'm still trying with that shoe. I don't know if this is the last version I do of that shoe or not. I think it might be. At some point I was just like, okay, this is as good as it's gonna get. Yeah. That said, man, I just can't draw shoes today. And this one was like kind of bent at a weird angle too. I don't know, there was a whole bunch of foreshortening and stuff going on that I just didn't understand. So I go through my little checklist here on the side, and, you know, I'm like, he's looking pretty good, character design wise. I don't hate it. And I circled the things that are color specific. Now, if you look, the color that I'm applying to his hair is not the same color I've picked up in the corner very clearly. And that is because I am applying it on the wrong layer. This layer is at like 20 something visibility. And I can kind of tell when I'm doing the skin tone, I'm like, that's not a lot of change from those two colors. And then I go in and I do his eyes. And no matter how dark I'm doing the brown, it doesn't look right. And then I switch to the full saturation and I'm like, oh my god, that's horrifying. But I liked that blonde, so I went back and stole it. And I toned down his skin just a little bit, I think. I make his eyes that dark brown. And because it's a cool palette, I decided to give him, you know, blue jeans and a kind of like purpley shirt and gray bluey Converse. The only warm color, I think, ended up being his skin. I think that's kind of like a warmer tone than what I was going for. But it's just because that blonde and tan skin tends to be like a really warm combination. But I think it's kind of like a cooler yellow. And I use a bit of red later on that I think is like a very cool red. I do tone down the saturation of that shirt a lot. And I write something on his shirt. I can't say it because of YouTube monetization, but I figured, this guy's a chill guy. He might have some swear words on his shirt. It's the one that starts with a B. So yeah, I do these little stars on his Converse to, really bring home the fact that they're Converse, not just any shoes. This is just another version of that word, I think. I don't speak Japanese. It's Google Translate. So I go to my checklist and I decide, I think I've nailed most things. I could have probably made him look a bit skinnier, but I think this is like reasonable skinny for an adult man, which is, who this guy is. Oh, of course, the tattoos. That's the one thing that I was still working on. I didn't want to do them in black because I didn't want them to overpower the line art. So I do them in this kind of like reddish, grayish color. I give him, I think, 3 in total. But I just looked up, simple tattoos because he's not a photorealistic character. He would have very simple looking tattoos. And I just did a basic cell shade. I've been doing a lot of the wet mixer brush recently, and I kind of just wanted to, cell shade a little bit because it's good to have like a wide variety of things that you can do. So I didn't want to lose like cell shading from my repertoire. Wow, that is not easy to say. So I use this like bluey color, and I'm kind of okay with how it looks. It gives me a bit of a green tinge. It's a little intense right now too, so I do turn down the opacity so that it's not so intense. He doesn't look like he's being smacked with a spotlight. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how the shading turned out as well. It looks, kind of natural. It seems to all be in the right places, which is kind of hard with me in shading. And I struggled a bit whether or not I wanted to give him a background and decided against it because I was like kind of tired. I guess it's time to reveal his name. I did just draw a big old E. I randomly generated the name for this character as well, and his randomly generated name is, drumroll, Emmett. So this is Emmett. He is my randomly generated character. I'm trying right now. At some point, I accidentally filled in the line art yellow, so I was trying to find it and delete it. But anyway, this is my final piece, and I hope you enjoyed watching and have a lovely day and all that jazz.